Okay, are we actually going to get through an episode without you referencing Pokemon Snap or Dragon Age?
Nah. The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem. It is episode 6 of the Gaming Lovers Podcast. G'day, I'm Jem.
I'm Brendo. We are the Gaming Lovers. This podcast is the Gaming Lovers Podcast for people who love games.
Kindred spirits, fellow gamers, and especially Sonic fans.
Well, not especially, but we do cater to them because I do talk about Sonic the Hedgehog quite a bit.
You cater to them. I cater to those who, love Dragon Age and Pokemon and Mass Effect and pretty much just that.
Just that.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
It's just on, my loop. Once I'm done with one series, I move on to the next, and then it just never ends. The gaming cycle. The circle of gaming.
The circle of gaming.
And it never moves forward.
Never moves forward. Just playing Mass Effect for the 29th time this year.
I could totally take that to Broadway. Oh, goodness.
Think that coffee's kicked in?
I think it has. In this episode, we're going to be talking about games that have aged well, like good wine or cheese.
I don't drink wine, and I haven't eaten that much cheese in the past few years.
But you do know a good game, and you know if it's aged well.
Ah, I know Colby cheese is delicious. It's my favourite cheese. I love Colby cheese.
Is Colby a brand or
No,
a
it's
type
a
of
type
cheese?
of, it's a special, it's matured one, I don't know. It tastes good, and it was in yellow packaging, and I used to love it.
We'll have to ask one of our friends, Ange, because she's like a cheese aficionado. So we'll check with her.
Well, I would make a lot of puns, but I don't want to be too cheesy. And there goes half our viewership. Listenership.
The other half that wasn't scared off by us singing at the beginning of this episode. Good grief. Before we get to our main topic for this episode, we've got a couple of things. Our gaming goals update, plus we're also going to do some E3 predictions and wishes.
Ooh.
Games that we know that are on the radar for the special presentations, but also games that we hope will be announced as well at E3 this year. Lots of speculation to be had. Before we go any further though, gaming goals, how'd you go this week, Brendo?
It has been a good week.
Yeah.
I was playing 2 Legend of Zelda games at the same time.
Yes.
The Breath of the Wild on the Switch.
Yep.
Ocarina of Time 3DS. Let me just set the scene a little bit. I hated Guardians in Breath of the Wild. Those octopus-looking robots. My goodness. They have 1,500 health, and I had weapons that did 30? So that's, 50 hits to kill them? And they have those giant lasers and kaboom. And not fun.
One-shot wonders.
Yeah,
Insta-death.
It was pretty rough. So I just avoided them as best I could. I decided to explore the Hyrule Castle area, and I took one step in and had 3 lasers pointed at me within 2 seconds. I did not enjoy that section. At first, I found an alternate way in and slowly but surely explored, and it was a lot more fun. Probably the most fun I had in that game so far, which is a vast contrast to my first experience in that castle area.
Mm-hmm.
I may have taken my investigation a little too far and triggered the final boss. Didn't mean to. I had done all Divine Beasts. Technically, I was ready for it, but I wasn't quite emotionally ready for it. I accidentally triggered a boss fight, and then I beat the boss, and I've now beaten Breath of the Wild, and I didn't mean to, but I have.
That's kind of funny, because normally when you want to take on boss fights, you want to be as prepared as absolutely possible and have the best equipment, the most health kind of stored away, all that kind of stuff. So you walked in blind, but you still managed to beat it at least.
I did. First go, it was a little messy at points, but I was surprised that I did it. It wasn't penciled in my gaming schedule, let's put it that way.
So you finished Breath of the Wild and you were playing Ocarina of Time. Have you finished that as well?
I then finished that an hour later. I had them both in their endgame runs.
So that means you are gameless at the moment.
Yakuza 4.
Oh, that's true.
Still being played.
Okay, but you can add something else to your plate while you're doing that, especially something handheld to take to work with you.
I am trying to get the waiter's attention right now to fill my plate back up.
Well, I will help you with that at the end of this episode.
Wonderful. What are you playing? What have you been playing? What have you played?
I played episode 2 of the Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale game and been enjoying that. So much so that I ended up digging up our copies of the movies of Guardians of the Galaxy because I couldn't remember all the details from that and I wanted to compare some things from that universe.
Some extracurricular study?
Yeah, and it's interesting because like in the game you can walk around the ship and pay attention to more detail. And so seeing it in the movie, I'm like, it is the same ship. I'm like seeing the layout of the way their chairs sit and everything. I'm like, it is the same. Cool. Okay. And I'm starting to learn more of the names and notice some of the smaller details and stuff in things too. So that was a lot of fun. Still haven't finished Trails of Cold Steel 2, but it's very, very close, like final dungeon close to finishing.
No problem.
Yeah.
I won't continue to apply that guilt trip on you. You play that at your own
I've made
pace.
some progress. So long as I've made some progress towards my goal, I don't feel bad. If I have left it sitting there for a whole week and not touched it, then I'll feel bad. But I don't. So it's all good.
And you're also about halfway through A Way Out, I believe, you and your sister.
We still haven't had the chance to catch up. This is what happens when you're adults and you have like full-time jobs, and especially when you work weird hours like we do, trying to find hours that line up where everyone is free is really hard. So we're still trying to organise a time so we can get in at least another session. Depending on how much time we have, we might be able to finish it, but otherwise we'll try to find a safe spot to save it so we can break up the story into sections.
There's no point rushing through something just for the sake of getting it done.
Yeah.
You're playing it to enjoy it.
No, but I need to know what happens to, Big Nose Leo.
Big Nose Leo.
Big Nose Leo. That's the guy that I'm playing as. Who's the other guy?
Vincent.
Vincent.
He doesn't have a big nose. That's why you can't remember him.
Well, I'm not playing as Vincent either. I'm playing as Big Nose Leo. So.
Well, enough big nose talk. Let's talk about big news because E3 is just around the corner.
Yay!
The whispers, the rumours, there's speculation. What's going to be revealed? This is apparently leaked. That's potentially going to be shown at E3.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what's real, what's just misdirection, who's embellishing, who's got the real scoop.
Yes, and really awkward presentations by people who generally aren't the best public speakers.
There are two very big reasons I enjoy watching those E3 press conferences.
Yep.
One is the excitement of a new entry in your favourite series or a new game that's going to be the next big thing.
Yep.
And the other reason I enjoy it is just watching the train wreck that it usually is.
Yes.
Ubisoft have a horrible track record of just being completely awkward or inappropriate.
Yes, a bit of both.
There's always some executive who doesn't speak English that well, and that he just sort of gets stuck, and sometimes that's a little embarrassing for the poor guy.
Yeah.
And there's also the guy who tries to give a big gusto of excitement for something.
Tries to get the crowd all amped up and they have none of it. And just they look so awkward. Or you get a guy that comes on stage that really does not want to be the person that the company chose to be the public speaker because they just like, and yes, this is the game and this is this and thank you. And then they walk off. It's like, it's so funny. It's just highs and lows on extremes.
Yeah, another Murphy's Law moment where anything that can go wrong
will
go wrong. Any live demos they do on stage with actual people playing and controllers don't sync up properly, or the audio drops out, or a game just flat out glitches and they have to restart the demo.
I remember when Uncharted 4, they did the live demo. And this is when, I love it when it is an actual live demo as opposed to them like pretending to actually play the game when they're so not. But the game froze and they were showing a bit where you're kind of walking through this market where you've got Nathan Drake and he just stood there.
A script didn't trigger to let the game start.
Yes.
It was just it was the intro cutscene bit. It floated in perfectly, seamlessly to where you actually control, and Drake's just
Standing
chilling.
there, wouldn't do it, nothing responded. The controller disconnected, something happened. To the point where, because it obviously became a talking point in the gaming community at the time, they made it a trophy in the game if you stood there as long as that awkward moment at E3 went on. I think it's about like a couple of minutes and you don't touch the controller in that time, in that spot, you get a trophy.
You gotta love when a developer can just point the thumbs at themselves and go, yeah, we mucked up.
And laugh at themselves.
It was funny. Here you go.
Yeah, I think that's good, and it shows good sense of humour from Naughty Dog. So.
Another bad one was one of the Legend of Zelda games on the Wii. Might have been when Twilight Princess was first announced.
Yeah.
And the creator of so many Nintendo anthologies, Shigeru Miyamoto, is there on stage showing off this game, and he cannot get the control to do what he wants. He's swinging it and it's not doing anything, so he gives up, gives a little shrug, and that little shrug triggers the sword swinging when it really was... No, it was just an absolute mess. People are just like, slapping hands to foreheads, just going, oh, this is not what we wanted on a live presentation. And that may be the very reason why Nintendo pre-record a lot of their stuff now.
Yes.
I doubt it, but that's just...
Some of their pre-recorded stuff is really cute. Like, they come up with some really cute things. Like puppets and animation and all sorts of stuff because they take the time months ahead to prepare, which... Honestly, I think if you want to control and make sure that the content turns out the way you want it to is probably the smarter choice. But yeah, it's always such a fun week. It's going to be rough for us here in Melbourne because I know if we want to watch it live, we're going to have to be like 9 hours and watch it at like 3 or 4 in the morning.
I do work late evenings, so it can be a bit... not too much of a stretch for me to stay up for those, to at least watch the start of it, but to watch the entire thing, it's going to roll on for hours. Probably not the best idea.
We might be doing some special podcasts, might even add a couple of episodes.
Ooh, a bonus show.
Yeah, just on E3 and the news that comes out of that and our favourite awkward moments maybe.
Yeah, probably. There'll be a top 10.
Oh yes, easily. My body is ready.
That's become a part of pop culture, and that originated at E3.
I know. Classic.
My body is ready.
There's so many. I love it. Okay, I want to know for you, for this year's E3, what are your predictions and what is a wish? If you could have a new game announced or a sequel or something, what would your heart's desire be, Brendo?
Well, I've been a fan of the man himself, Hideo Kojima, for many, many years. That man's brain is a very interesting thing.
Yes, it is.
And it has led me to hours upon hours of weirdness and or entertainment, depending on which part of his games you're playing. Now, his new title, Death Stranding, we know very little of.
Yeah.
There was a very confusing trailer revealed with an oily baby who melted and
that
Norman
guy
Reedus was in it, and that was pretty much all we knew.
From The Walking Dead, if you don't know who he is.
Because they were planning on working on Silent Hills, which is what PT was teasing.
Yes.
And that was going to be a big collaboration.
Until
it was going to be awesome.
Big falling out with Konami.
And then that all just fell to pieces. So everyone's just clamoring for anything Kojima because he got booted out of everything. Konami booted him out of his own game. He got axed off. The whole Silent Hill thing just went to nowhere.
Yeah, they took his name off everything as well. If you do a little digging, the treatment, some of the horror stories you hear of him being locked in a room on a different level from all the other developers and stuff.
Yeah, so he couldn't continue to influence the game that he created.
It's just that makes things like that make me really sad about the state of the gaming industry a little bit, that you've got big corporate heads that make these decisions that destroy the creativity of the developers.
Yeah. Well, now Kojima Productions, he has unchained potential of creativity, and I'm very curious to see what it is.
We do know he's working on a trailer because he posted on his Twitter account that he was working on it, and he was surrounded by like 3 piano keyboards. And so I'm just like, this dude is so talented. He can play the piano and he's building the trailer. He's like got his fingers in all the pots.
Yes, and that's the sign of a good director. He knows what his vision is.
Mm-hmm.
He will get it the way he wants it. And he may not have had that with Metal Gear Solid 5, but he definitely will with Death Stranding, and that's what I'm most excited to see.
There's a few things on my list. We know that we can see The Last of Us Part 2. So I'm betting there's going to be another trailer for that. We've already had like some teaser trailers, but I'm hoping that they'll show us some more proper gameplay.
Yeah, some of the stuff they've shown previously, very dark. Now, I'm all for a dark, mature game. I don't like too much when things just push the boundaries for the sake of being controversial. If it fits the theming, it fits the narrative, I'm all for it.
We will have to wait and see, I guess. On a completely polar opposite note, something that's very light and fluffy, for the most part, Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh, what a wait that has been.
Only took us over a decade.
Oh, it's the Kingdom Hearts series, there's only 2 mainline games.
Yes.
Technically, Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts 2. There's been like half a dozen other games that have filled in bits of the story, but an actual full Kingdom Hearts 3 we have been clamouring for.
And we know we're going to see more of that too, because a lot of game reviewers around the world have been able to actually play demos of it. Not able to share any story information, but they've been gushing about the Toy Story section in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm so jealous. But for us, a little bit of trivia for you guys. Kingdom Hearts is kind of close, near and dear to our hearts.
Yes, indeed.
Because we used the theme in our wedding.
Yes, we did. The intro theme of Kingdom Hearts 2, the
Dearly
opening
Beloved
menu. Yes.
Beautiful song. And yeah, I walked down the aisle to that. So whenever we load up the game, it's like, oh.
And that's why we are the gaming lovers.
Yes. So we know that those are happening. There's talk of seeing more about Final Fantasy VII, the remake that's in the works.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how far along that is. Apparently, reports say that is many years off.
Oof. The fans aren't going to be happy about that.
They're waiting until this entire generation of fans die before they actually release it to a new generation. You're a big BioWare fan.
Mm-hmm.
Any interest in Anthem from what you've seen?
I'm still a little salty. I want to see what they have to say, but I'm kind of hoping that there might be also an announcement about a potential Dragon Age 4 from BioWare. I feel like that might help be like balm over the wound that is Anthem and everything that happened with Andromeda. So I'm not entirely keen, but I'm also, because I don't really want to play a multiplayer online BioWare game.
Space shooter.
That doesn't have any appeal to me at all. I don't really touch the multiplayer when it's on their single campaign games.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have something else to offer as well, then I'll get excited for that. One thing I think is a sure bet. Another WWE game.
Well, they pump them out like clockwork, so that's
that they do.
Almost a guarantee.
Whether good or bad.
Sports games probably the only genre I don't play regularly. I'll play shooters, I'll play puzzle games, I'll pay for microtransactions. I probably won't actually. I'll play RPGs, Japanese RPGs, Western RPGs, I'll play whatever you want. But sports games, I don't know, they don't really...
Unless you're playing with a mate, I don't have much patience for them not for long.
Or if they're absurd, like Rocket League, where you're playing soccer with cars.
See, that's a little different, though. That feels more arcadey than necessarily a sports-specific. When it's based off real people, then that's different, I feel like.
I think I've taken us a little detour off track. One thing I am looking forward to, something I look forward to every year at E3, I'm all for great sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Great sequels, great spin-offs. But what I love is when you see a brand new IP, new intellectual property, that just catches your attention.
Like when Horizon Zero Dawn was first announced.
You know, exact example I was going to use. That I knew nothing about that. Oh, there's a caveman person. Oh, caveman woman. Oh, look at this.
Ooh,
what are they hunting? oh, it's robot dinosaurs.
Yes.
Whoa, how did this happen? There's crumpled buildings in the background. You're like, wow, this looks awesome.
And
Just
it was, thank goodness.
a well put together trailer. You don't need the hype of a series behind it to get people's attention. So I'm excited to see what new games. It doesn't matter if it's a well-known AAA dev or if it's a new indie.
Sometimes new indies can be awesome.
A Way Out's technically an indie.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that.
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo Jem. That's BRENDOJEM. Well, one thing we definitely know we are going to be seeing a lot more of at E3 because there's already been some announcements and leaks ahead of this big event. There's going to be some Fallout. 76.
Well, 76 was revealed. That's pretty much all we know. But there has been some fallout about Fallout 76 because rumours are swirling that it's going to be an online crafting RPG of some sort, and
like a survival game.
the air just got sucked out of the room.
But then there's other rumours that those rumours are completely false and that some of it was fake leaked to make certain gaming journalists look bad because they had leaked things about that particular studio before, so they wanted to get revenge. There's so much intrigue surrounding this. We don't know what's true, so we have to wait till E3 to actually find out whether there's any truth to the rumours.
But there has been precedent in the past where things have been officially announced. No Man's Sky, anyone? And that did not actually reflect the final product at all. So really, you can't tell until the final reviews come out. But we will have, hopefully, a better idea of what Fallout 76 is at the Bethesda E3 press conference in just a short while away.
Mm-hmm. There is also a new Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which looks like it's set in ancient Greece.
Is that a sequel to Super Mario Odyssey? Or the Xbox 360 RPG Lost Odyssey? Great game, by the way.
Could
Very
you imagine
undervalued.
you just throw your centurion's hat or helmet to control your enemies?
just possess the Colosseum and start going on a city-destroying rampage. Sounds great.
They don't need help destroying it. Rome burnt itself down, didn't they? Or maybe that's how it started.
We're talking Greece or Rome?
Well,
I always get them mixed up. It's the Greco-Roman Empire.
They kind of cross paths quite a bit, and
Yes.
a lot of the history overlaps. So, frankly, the armour looked very Roman to me, and that little gif that I can't stop watching with one guy kicking another off a cliff.
The big boot.
Yes. I'm
Well-
like, it's hypnotising.
You know what was a hit song many, many years ago was Grease Lightning. And you know what shoots lightning? Pikachu's, which is a Pokemon.
You were like on a current affair with your insane
Just
segues from one topic to another.
Trying to keep it moving. Pokemon.
Yes.
Pokemon news was being hit left, right, centre, bang, bang, bang.
Uh-huh.
We got a new Pokemon Quest. It's like a iPad tapping game, basically.
Which is set to come out on mobile devices soon. And I downloaded that pretty much straight away as soon as it was announced that it was free on the Nintendo store. I'm like, yes, get it,
Yep.
get it.
Nintendo Switch. I love it when they go, hey, we've got a new... I don't like free-to-play games that much, but when they go, hey, we've got a new free-to-play game and it's out, let me check my watch right now. Just like they did with Fallout Shelter.
Yep, and if you want to see some exclusive footage of me playing it for the very first time, that's up on our Facebook page.
Her excitement is palpable.
Yes, you might need to turn up the volume a little bit because the Pokemon music does tend to drown me out, I found out. But there is much fangirling over the blocky Pokemon in Pokemon Quest.
It's a simplistic game.
Yep.
Simplistic gameplay. Maybe good for the younger generation.
Although, be careful with younger kids because there's a ton of microtransactions built into this sucker. So
Yes. As a warning to anybody letting a kid play any game with microtransactions, make sure there's a sort of lock, parental controls, anything like that would prevent $1,000 bills
yes.
charged to your account.
They've also announced Pokemon Let's Go, which is kind of merging the Pokemon Go app, which, swept the world not that long ago, into a console game, merging the RPG elements of the classic Pokemon Yellow games, which is what they've said. They're basically revamping them,
Yes.
which is what I first played. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I get to go back to the Kanto region and I can have Pikachu or Eevee sitting on my head. Yes, please.
Let me just turn your Legend of Zelda argument on its head for a second. Will the game be good because it's good, or will it be purely based on nostalgia?
Bit of both.
Yes.
Bit of both. It does look good, like graphically, and you can play co-op.
That does raise a little excitement because
Yes.
I love co-op games.
And they've announced that there is a new, like the big kahuna is coming out next year. So
The big
obviously...
Kakuna.
No. No, the big kahuna of the games, the one that everyone's kind of really waiting for, will be announced properly at E3.
The next
So-
mainline Pokemon RPG for the Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
The Pokemon Let's Go games, Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. Probably more of a gateway for the casual fans
Yep.
who got on board with the Pokemon Go Express.
It's kind of cool that they have found a way to merge Pokemon Go with the Switch game, though. I'm like, that's cool. It's a great way to kind of keep the gameplay going, and I think it's going to make it a bit more addictive because you can keep playing the game as you're out and about with your phone.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff will likely be optional as well, where you can play it without a Pokemon Go account. But if you do, you can be out on your lunch break at work and catch a Dratini and import him back to your game later on and things like that. You can also get a little Pokeball accessory that will come with it that you can throw.
It's already like the best-selling game on Amazon. It's insane.
It-
It hasn't even launched yet. Pre-orders, the numbers that have come through have put it at the top of the charts, basically. Pre-orders.
Well, at least we know what that is. People are pre-ordering Fallout 76. They don't even know what the game is.
That's nuts.
I don't like pre-orders, personally.
We're just so excited, and there's constantly news dropping in the build-up to E3. It's like people can't wait for E3 to happen. It's like it's already happening.
Yeah, I know. It's. Well, to be fair, when your birthday month rolls around, you do like to get an early present.
That's true.
So
That's true. I'm still hoping, like deep down, holding out just that slither of hope that Pokemon Snap might be like, it may not
Oh
be coming
my
out soon, but
gosh,
they
here
might
we
be
go
saying,
again.
"Hey, we're working on it for like 2020."
are 4 announced Pokemon games not enough for you?
No, not unless it's Pokemon Snap.
You have a problem. So can someone please get this woman some Pokemon Snap?
Yep, that's all I want. Well, that and lots of other games, but
And Dragon. Blah, blah, blah.
oh, E3. I'm so looking forward to E3.
Well, that's enough news for now. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this break, talking about games that have aged well and maybe a few that have not.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side, and you could be featured in the next podcast.
Well, we were all playing Pokemon back in the day, and we have aged since then. Some have aged well, some of us have aged not so well. I miss my hair. How's that for a transition? We're going to talk about games that have aged well, what exactly helps them age well, and what pitfalls should be avoided when making a game to prevent it from looking as ragged and old as...
You?
Yeah, thanks. Boy.
You left that open. I want to start with a game that I like to play in various formats on various platforms, whether it's my phone, computer, console, it's across the board. One of the oldest games and easily one of the most accessible and well-known, Tetris.
Tetris.
A game that is fun but also makes me really stress out once it starts to speed up.
If something can be re-released on various consoles every couple of years...
And always sell well.
Always sell well, everybody knows it, everybody's probably owned a copy of Tetris in some way, shape or form.
Or multiple.
Whether it's original Tetris or Tetris Sphere on the Nintendo 64
I remember
or
that.
Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Puyo Puyo.
It's just a simple thing. A puzzle game that has a simple interface, simple controls, and yet is endlessly replayable. You can't go wrong with that.
It's easily at the top of the list because it is, I think, to date, the highest selling video game of all time.
Technically, I am a professional Tetris player.
Are you really?
At one of my previous jobs, my boss and his wife not getting along so well. They were friends on Facebook playing Tetris against each other. She beat his score. He sent everyone else to go out and do work and said, Brendo, you play games. You're sitting here until you beat that score. And I could have probably milked it for longer than I did, but I did. And I professionally have made money playing Tetris.
Oh, that's so funny.
What if that violates any workplace agreements that were in effect?
Not unless the conditions were really bad or something, or made you skip your lunch meal or something.
No,
you skip your lunch.
No, nothing so sinister as that. You wouldn't dare skip my lunch meals.
Some other games that have aged really well, going back to one of the earliest video games and one that has been in arcades, to movies.
Movies?
Mm-hmm. Pac-Man.
No, please don't mention Pixels.
I wasn't actually going to mention Pixels. I was going to mention Guardian of the Galaxy 2.
Is that a spoiler? That's like the biggest moment of the movie.
Oh, it's so not, but it is pretty funny.
Is he in Wreck-It Ralph?
The ghosts are. I don't know if you ever really, unless he's in the background. He's definitely referenced. But one of the ghosts hosts that, Villains Anonymous. I can't remember which one it was.
Is it Inky, Blinky, Winky, or Clyde?
I can't remember which one's which.
Such great names.
They're pretty funny. So that one has had many iterations, and because it was actually so popular in Japan with women that they released Ms. Pac-Man.
Ms. Pac-Man?
Yeah, because they discovered that more females were actually playing it than men, so they catered to that.
Stuck a bow on Pac-Man, that's pretty much it.
Pretty much,
and some
but
eyelashes.
A tip to game developers out there, usually, especially in today's age, about 50% of gamers are chicks. So, catering to us is not going to hurt your bottom dollar.
See, you can call them chicks. I can't.
I can because I am one.
Yeah, you're still talking games in the 80s.
Well, you got to think of things that are old because they have had to age.
Well, even games that were made 10 years ago can age absolutely terribly.
That's true.
More recent ones like, what can I use as an example? BioShock.
Mm-hmm.
First-person shooter, that's actually 10 years old, pretty much. I cannot believe that when I think about it. Feels like just yesterday I was experiencing that game for the first time. It has a slightly artistic art style. Sort of, the enemies aren't exactly photoreal. They look sort of, not cartoony, that's not the right word, but they're less human-looking and more...
Monsters?
Well, they are deformed. But they just sort of, they didn't go for a photorealistic look, which is a mistake a lot of people try.
Or too 3D. If there's too much 3D kind of instead of 2D animation, then that ages, I think, a lot of games. You look at a lot of stuff on the Nintendo 64, and because everything's very blocky 3D animation, so much of it you can't really play now unless you really want to hurt your eyes.
Yeah, there are not a lot. Sadly, the Nintendo 64, the PlayStation 1 are in that unsweet spot.
Unfortunately.
You've got retro games. Super Mario World, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the Super Nintendo. It has a very simple art style. I think we're seeing a theme here. Controls are tight. The level design's awesome. You can play that today and have a blast.
Yep.
You get stuck in that the 32 and 64-bit era, things get a little messy because developers are trying to push the console to its limits, and the limits weren't actually that high when it came to 3D graphics.
No.
GoldenEye, the models in that look like their heads are made of about 2 or 3 polygons.
You think of the original Tomb Raider, poor Lara Croft.
I actually
Pyramids.
played...
Yes.
Well... I actually played the PS1 version of Tomb Raider on my PS Vita. Another benefit of the PS Vita. And it was a little rough, very rough around the edges. Most cliffs are perfect squares, which is always handy when you're exploring. Not a lot of polygons on offer. Later PS1 games, certainly, that's the beautiful thing about console generations. things come out early and they're like, wow, this is incredible. But then by the end of the console's life cycle, the graphics you can pump out of that thing are incredible. You've seen me play Yakuza 4 recently, and you commented, wow, the faces look so real.
I know, they're better. The graphics on them are better than some stuff that have come out on PlayStation 4. Looking at you, Andromeda.
All right. You have to just get those little digs into Mass Effect Andromeda every episode, don't you?
Oh, not every episode, but nearly.
Yeah. So unfortunately, GoldenEye doesn't run all that well. The controller doesn't help these days because people have been trained to use a completely different style of controller. The game runs at about 15 frames per second. It's not that great. Sadly. One of those games that is absolutely fueled by nostalgia. You remember it in your brain, you go, oh, that game's so good. I'm like that with the original Silent Hill. I think, oh man, this game is, I'm going to play it again. And you boot it up and you're like, ugh, I can't do this.
I wonder if Half-Life fans would feel like that now. I mean, it's been quite a while since Half-Life 2 came out. I wonder, would they say that it's, I mean, it got so many accolades when it launched, but would it still be held to the same standard, I guess?
But with PC gaming, you can run games at different graphics powers.
That's true.
So if you're growing up, you might have had a weaker computer, couldn't quite push the game engine to its limits. And then in later years, you revisit it. Modders have released new texture packs, things like that. They help games from the old days, like Baldur's Gate, for example, a game that I played years and years and years ago, 20 years ago, on my PC that probably, was Steam powered, not not Valve, but I was trying to make an age joke, but that's actually a thing these days. So that completely derailed. But Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition came out just a few years ago. I played that this year and I loved it, and it was smooth as butter.
They did that too. They modified KOTOR 2, the Knights of the Old Republic, the Sith Lords.
Yep, Star Wars RPG.
Because it wasn't finished when it launched, because of so much issues with rushed development, there's actually quite a bit of dialogue that got cut from the game, and the ending especially. Modders I don't know how they found it, but they found files that were somehow in the game but hadn't been coded. And they coded it, they linked it to animation. I mean, mountains of work.
A lot of quests that were cut.
Yeah, and added them in. And I'm like, they basically finished off the game for free for everybody because they love it. And there was a couple of years back that they did that and launched it on Steam. And I am so thankful to whoever did that. Thank you so much, because especially storyline-wise, to have some closure, especially with Atten and other characters that you get really connected to, was really nice to go back and actually see what was supposed to happen instead of just a really abrupt ending. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. But that being said, not every game can be modded to be fixed and to keep its longevity.
Well, the good thing is, good thing, bad thing, depends on who you talk to. A lot of developers love to release HD remasters, if not just complete remakes of classic games.
Final Fantasy VII.
Well, again, we're going to see how that goes. Games like the Metal Gear Solid games got HD remasters.
Snake Eater.
Pretty much, you throw a random dart at a dartboard full of games, you're probably going to hit a HD remaster these days.
That's true.
And some people say it's sapping the creativity out of the games industry because companies can just,
repackage,
polish up their game that's already out, sell it for a brand new $60. Why bother making something new?
I know, you could have whole teams just dedicated to tightening up, giving a nip tuck essentially to games that are already out there.
Yeah.
And make just as much money.
Now, I think they're actually pretty good because if you miss the game the first time around, maybe the game didn't age so well under the existing hardware.
Yeah.
You clean it up, better resolution, better frame rate, better draw distances.
It seems silly, though, to release a remastered, only a couple of years after it's already come out. I think they did that with The Last of Us.
Yeah, it did. But
that was pretty too quick on the mark, I think.
It was, but a lot of people had jumped ship. At the start of a new console era, you get people from the other camp, basically. Xbox 360 players see the PlayStation 4 and go, I'll give that a shot.
Especially after E3.
Another E3 blunder.
That year, oh my goodness.
Where Xbox One was officially revealed.
And so was PlayStation 4. But Xbox went first, and boy, did they step in it.
And yeah, they just absolutely made a mess of things.
Yes. And then all PlayStation had to do was come out, I think, just in a short speech before they started their presentation, just said, oh, guess what? We're not going to do this, and this. All these things that people were complaining about Xbox bringing in.
And they got thunderous ovations.
Yes. And basically broke the internet. Everyone's like going, Sony has won E3. And it's turned into this competition. Well, it always was, but it really ramped up that year.
Yeah. But that is why they remastered The Last of Us on PlayStation 4 so early in that life cycle, because a lot of players had jumped ship and hadn't played the PlayStation 3 version. Shadow of the Colossus, I hadn't played until they released the HD version on the PlayStation 3. Mm-hmm. And since then, they've released another one on the PlayStation 4. So if the PlayStation 5 comes out in about 3 years, guess what's probably going to end up on it?
Shadow of the Colossus?
Maybe.
The Last of Us again?
Yeah, who knows? We might just be stuck in an infinite loop now, and you still won't get your Pokemon Snap.
I want to touch on that because there was rumours, going back to E3 again, that the PlayStation 4 might be on the way out. There's rumours that they might even be talking up their next console at E3. So that should be interesting to see what games would then come across again, because there's always talk of what's going to be backwards compatible and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, we always have these little ebbs and flows. Everyone says, oh, console gaming's dead. Oh, console gaming's here to stay. Handheld gaming's dead. Oh, handheld gaming is doing better than ever. Flipping and flopping with
Can't
the
make
rise
up their mind.
of iPhones and Galaxies that can actually, play proper handheld games on them. I still don't like the lack of buttons, personally. I have trouble playing on a smartphone's touchscreen. Don't really like it.
Whereas I play on mine all the time. My
Ew.
phone.
Ew.
Why are you saying ew?
I don't like I want buttons.
The whole screen is one giant button. Other games that I think have aged well over the years. Banjo-Kazooie. Now, I know
Banjo-Kazooie!
we technically said that most stuff, pretty much everything on the Nintendo 64 has aged terribly because of the graphics. But Banjo-Kazooie is one of those magical games that's kind of, even though it still has the blocky animation, still charming, and it had a rebirth on the Xbox.
Yes, well, speaking of HD remasters.
Exactly. So they tightened it up a little bit, relaunched it, and because it's so charming and it's got such cute characters and great music, I think it found a second life on the Xbox.
Yeah, the characters in that game are blocky, but they're also, like you said, charming. They're not drawn. They're modelled in a way that uses the low polygon count to make them look charming. And, you may not have the biggest worlds in that game, but what is there is fun to interact with.
Yeah.
That's all you need for a game to age well. Don't try to overextend yourself when the graphical computing limitations of the console can't push it. By the way, the Nintendo 64 had an expansion pack.
The console had an expansion pack?
It had a little memory block. You could open up the hatch on the front of the console, plop it in, and get a whopping 4 meg more of video processing power.
Oh my goodness.
Required for some games like Donkey Kong 64.
Man. I don't think I had that. I don't think I ever got that expansion pack. I don't think my parents...
It was literally called the expansion pack.
My parents probably wouldn't have understood what it was even if I asked for it. They'd be like, what is this? What did you want? It doesn't do anything. Oh, goodness. Pokemon, the original, with red, blue, and yellow, which is what I had, what I grew up with. I think the classic style of it, and obviously we've seen many iterations of it throughout the years, is still a classic game formula, one that sells every year, otherwise they wouldn't keep making them. But the originals, even if you go back and play them, if you find old Game Boys and can boot them up, they still work great, they're still fun.
Yeah.
The art style too, because it's kind of pixelated.
Which is very in at the moment.
Yes.
Pixel art. Every second indie is drawn in pixel art.
Yes.
Which means those old style games with their limited graphics, pixels everywhere, guess what? they suddenly look good again.
Exactly. And it's easy for a lot of indie developers to mimic because they're smaller and take less processing. They can make them more accessible, easy for downloads on computers, on smartphones and tablets. So there's accessibility in that sense too.
Now, I wasn't going to talk about Sonic this episode, but I've just thought Sonic 1, 2, 3 and Sonic and Knuckles all play very, very well these days. You can get them on your iPhones, you can get them on your Galaxies, you can get them on Xbox, you can get them on PlayStation, you can get them on Nintendo,
How would
get
you
them on
control
pretty much
it on
anything.
the iPhone? Would you?
I have
shake
it on there and it's different. No. You just have fake buttons, like there's a D-pad etched, like drawn on the screen, and that's what you press to use it. And then, of course, you'll overextend your thumb and miss it, and you fall off a cliff.
I love it.
Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, 3, and Sonic and Knuckles, even Sonic CD, all play great. The 2D style, it works great on any device that you can get it on. You can get them on your mobile phones, your consoles, your handhelds, pretty much anything. They all play great. The games that followed them, Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, they rated very, very highly when they came out. The HD remasters came out, which is basically the exact same game and rated very, very poorly. Basically because those games were not very good and would fall apart at the drop of a hat. The camera was terrible, but for some reason it was cutting edge at the time and ended up on the cutting room floor many years later.
Some of the bad Sonic games you look at either with really blocky animation or their attempt at voice acting in some of them as well, which is shocking. Things like that too will hurt a game's longevity.
No, it's not. It's not that fault. It's rushed development cycles. That's what we need to talk about one of these upcoming episodes. Games that have suffered because of time constraints, developer cuts.
I feel like that gets mentioned whether we have a podcast on it or not. It's been referenced almost every episode anyway.
Look in depth.
Goodness.
Do you play mini games on your iPhone?
I play lots of games on my iPhone.
Those Sonic games are horrible to control on your iPhone.
Oh, I wouldn't play Sonic games on my iPhone.
What would you play?
I play lots of different mobile games from Fallout Shelter.
Hey, that was revealed at an E3.
It was, and I downloaded
there's
it
a game.
that day.
There's a game coming out, and it's out now, and it's free.
I've been playing it since then, and they've added some really fun updates, although some of them I'm not particularly fond of. My entire vault getting completely slaughtered by stupid death claws. Thank you very much. That's just not fair.
It's the realistic experience.
They don't go attacking vaults. That's the whole point of being in vaults. You're supposed to be safe. Anyway.
Well, I suppose that's a good point.
Yes. Unless you've got the door wide open, which it is not. Anyway, I have Animal Crossing, and I also have KOTOR Knights of the Old Republic, the first one, on my phone. And it actually works pretty well on a smartphone or a tablet because you just touch things, and because it's
you enter your commands and it does the calculations. It uses the same Dungeons and Dragons rules basically as Baldur's Gate did.
You can pause combat and really think and take your time. And if you get attacked, it will auto pause, things like that. Those kind of features make it good for when you're on the go and if you need to put it down for a bit. But yeah, if you are looking for an RPG on your phone and one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars game ever, and I'll say ever, KOTOR.
Has it aged well?
The graphics aren't great.
Graphics aren't all that's important.
But
does it play well?
It plays well. It's fun. Fabulous voice acting.
No,
that's not what I was referencing. I was going to say Jennifer Hale. Thank you very much as Bastila.
I was just enjoying the Twi'leks.
And if you're a big fan of Once Upon a Time, the TV show, the guy who plays Jiminy Cricket.
Sparge.
Yes. Raphael. He voices Cartho Nasi in KOTOR. So there's some really great voice actors in there.
Cool.
Yeah.
It has aged well. Gets the big rubber stamp.
I think part of it is a little bit of nostalgia.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. How many of these games are fueled by nostalgia? I should get you to sit down and play some of the games that I've said have aged well, and you should play them for the first time and see if they've aged well. I played through Ocarina of Time recently, and you said, are you sure it's as good as everyone says it is? Or is that just nostalgia talking? Well, maybe that should be a future hashtag challenge Brendo Jem.
Maybe.
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 That came out really
Were
awkward.
you strangely nervous?
Maybe. We're getting feverish in this booth, I think. Well, going back to gaming goals as we wrap up this episode of The Gaming Lovers.
Gaming goals.
You've finished 2 games, both of which were Zelda. Have you had enough Zelda?
I don't think I have, really. I could probably play more
Are
Zelda.
there any other in our library that you have that you want to play or that you've not played?
In the Super Nintendo Mini Classic, Legend of Zelda Link to the Past is on that. I have not played it.
Well, there you go. That can be your challenge,
Wonderful.
your goal for this week. On top of Yakuza, of course. Try and fly through those because Japan is looming.
Oh, it is looming. I just keep getting distracted playing bowling and karaoke and darts and every other stupid minigame that's in those games.
They're not stupid. They're so fun. They're hilarious to watch,
All right,
especially
what are you
karaoke.
focusing on?
The
The karaoke. Yakuza. Oi, oi, oi! Tambourines clapping and hey!
My gaming goals for this week.
Is to play through all the games you said were nostalgia-driven that have not aged well.
I never have time to do all of that. I want to finish, really finish Trails of Cold Steel 2, and maybe I might be able to do more than one episode of Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll try. I'll see how my week works out. And hopefully organise a time to catch up with my sister so we can finish A Way Out. So we want to keep playing that.
Now you're starting to sound like me. You've got
It's
like
adding
4
up.
games on the go.
There's probably more that I'm playing as well that instead of actually focusing on my goals, I get distracted by something else.
Do I need to hide the copies of Mass Effect and Dragon Age that we have in this house? No,
Don't
you'd
you
probably
dare.
just buy them digitally.
I would too.
It's getting ridiculous.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll join us next week as we dig deeper into E3 and all the fun announcements and exciting news that's going to come out of those conferences.
It'll be basically in our laps by then. It's so exciting.
Yes. So look out for a couple of extra episodes potentially on the way in that week. It's going to be quite the week at the Gaming Lovers.
Whoop, whoop.
Until then, sayonara.
Sayonara. I love it.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.